This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. More and more of these missives online. This from a few weeks back, but still relevant. Ryan Staley is a teacher, was. After over 15 years as an educator, I left my teaching job. As a third-generation teacher, I grew up around highly competent educators who dedicated their careers to the growth and development of thousands of kids. I found myself on this path because I value the great reward of watching my students and athletes struggle, learn, grow, and succeed. Unfortunately, over the last couple of years, it has become more and more difficult to educate and develop students. From fights happening often and students overtly disrespectful to the adults to constant battles over cell phone use and obsessive gaming on the computers, life in the contemporary middle school classroom has become morally and emotionally draining. The bottom line, too many students were coming through the door with deficiencies in the skills, knowledge, and attitudes necessary to be successful. You're talking about sixth graders. Sixth graders often had no phonics skills and couldn't read. Sophomores in high school who were not capable of writing more than a paragraph response for an essay. And college freshmen who could not handle basic algebra. Our schools are failing the long-term development of students through the implementation of a Marxian, neo-racist agenda. Schools are now pushing kids as young as kindergartners to become agents of change with the underlying focus of making them all social justice activists. Schools and staff have bought into the idea that teaching is political and that the goal or purpose of an education is to bring about equity and liberation. I can no longer be part of a system that so readily abhors the United States, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution. I no longer want to play a part in the indoctrination of students into an ideology that is destructive, harmful, and unjust. I will no longer sit idly by as collectivism and activism are the primary drivers for why we educate our youth. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line, 64636DA, turnkey.pro text line. Love to hear from teachers in response to what Ryan Staley had to say. 15-year educator, third-generation teacher, and this is what he sees starting apparently at the middle school level where he was teaching. Does that sound familiar? Whether you're leaving or not, does that sound familiar? Is that what you're seeing? Is this legitimate criticism of what's happening in pre-K through 12 education generally, both in terms of what is being done and what is being accomplished? In other words, what the curriculum and the angle of instruction is and how the students are producing, or as Ryan Staley describes, not. No phonics skills. Sophomores in high school not capable of writing more than a paragraph response for an essay. College freshmen who can't handle basic algebra.
That's why parents have to read their kids' homework to see if if they're literate, to see if they can construct a sentence or an essay. I grab my kids' homework all the time and read it.
Is that what's happening?
Well, what did they expect? I mean, phonics skills? We've covered kids' mouths and kept them locked out of school for 2 years.
Yeah, I think this was happening before the pandemic.
But the pandemic exacerbated it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Well, I know that the evidence is pretty clear about the retardation of the intellectual and social, emotional development of these kids. Yeah, no question.
And yesterday was supposed to be, mask-free, mask optional.
It's about more than masks, though.
Okay.
Pre-pandemic, exacerbated, still happening. Post-masking.
So
in most places.
Ryan's just leaving? Ryan Staley?
He's done, so he says.
Just giving up?
Wisconsin teachers instructed to hide students' gender identities from parents.
Yeah, that was in Eau Claire, right?
Teachers at a school district in Eau Claire being instructed to hide their students' changing gender identities from parents on the grounds that parents are not entitled to know, and that is knowledge that must be earned. Parents have to earn the right to access the knowledge about their kids' gender identities. You don't just get that information. You got to earn it.
You got to work for it? Uh-huh.
The training sessions held in late February, hosted by, of course, the DI staffers at the University of Wisconsin at Eau Claire.
Yes, there you go.
One of the slides in the training session reads, remember, parents are not entitled to know their kids' identities. That knowledge must be earned. Teachers are often straddling this complex situation. Our priority is supporting the students. Chris Jorgensen is the director of the UW Eau Claire's Gender and Sexuality Research Center, and said, quote, teachers are often put in terrible positions, caught between parents and their students, but much like we wouldn't act as stand-ins for abuse in other circumstances, we cannot let parents' rejection of their children guide teachers' reactions and actions in response to the instruction.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro. Answer line 64636. Type in DA, then a quick comment. Well, if your son or daughter wants to change their name legally, the parent needs to know, because the parent has to go to court with the child. Mother and father, if both are around, have to go.
Yeah, I mean, legal name change is,
That's how
way
it
down the
begins.
road. No, it's actually way down the road. It doesn't begin. It begins with today I'm a girl. Today I'm Danielle. Today my pronouns are her and she or Z or they or them, or I'm non-binary or whatever. And this is how you're going to treat me in school. And this is how I'm going to be educated. And this is how people will socialize with me. And shh, don't tell the parents.
Can I ask you a quick question? When I get emails from male CPS employees, they say him, her, no, not him, her, him, them, they. So what does, I don't understand what that means. Can you help me out, Dan? Or is it just a bunch of gobbledygook? Like he, him, it says he, him, them, there. What does that mean?
I
don't even
them
know.
there. He's that person's a place now too.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, but this is just Pandora's box, whatever. All the horribles. There are no boundaries. There are no lines. There's no truth. There's feeling. Just feeling. So is this happening or not? Or these stories that we report from California to the cheese state, they're just one-offs, anomalies? What our friend Ryan Staley wrote at his Substack, that's a unique experience. He's got it wrong in terms of what's happening in K through 12 education. Well, again, we talked about this at some length yesterday when we talked to the filmmaker for Whose Children Are They, which, if you didn't see in theaters yesterday, it should be moving to the streaming services. And we've been talking about these stories for a long time, and usually it's the elite schools that are the instigators. So, for example, the Dalton School in Manhattan, where their dean resigned the end of last year after controversy about the curriculum. The Dalton School is K through 12. Some of the parents saying every class this year at the Dalton School in New York, this is one of those $60,000 a year schools, K through 12. Every class this year an obsessive focus on race identity, racist cop, reenactments in science, decentering whiteness in art class, learning about white supremacy and sexuality in health class. Wildly inappropriate, many of these classes feel more akin to a Zoom corporate sensitivity training than to Dalton's intellectually engaging curriculum. Well, that intellectually engaging curriculum is gone. That's the point. And by the way, when it comes to the sexualization of children, which we talked a little bit about, particularly against the backdrop of the prohibition on gender identity, sexualization of children education in quotation marks in Florida, what the critics say is the Don't Say Gay bill, which of course it doesn't say.
No, it doesn't say.
And it's now being picked up by Republicans in Georgia, too, and being explained, thankfully, by Ron DeSantis wherever he goes. So back at Dalton School, here's a video that started to get some parents' attention over at the Dalton School in Manhattan. Manhattan now, not exactly Trump country, to borrow a Smollettism.
Too soon, Dan.
Scoop and Friends. Scoop and Friends.
Scoop and Friends.
Meet Scoop and Friends. It's a cartoon video for first graders at the Dalton School in New York that teaches first graders
Oh, no. Oh, good. You have it. Nice.
about masturbation.
Ew.
Pass it, Squeaks!
Whoa! Watch it! You almost hit me in the pee-pee! What's so funny, you two?
He said pee-pee.
Do you notice that when you say pee-pee, you giggle, but when you say penis, you say it in a serious voice?
I never noticed that before.
Some children and adults feel uncomfortable when they talk about their private parts, so they make up cute or funny names for them.
What's one for a girl's private parts?
Vajayjay! But what does Scoops mean when he says vajayjay?
He means vulva.
That's right, Kayla. It's important to use the proper words for our private parts.
Why?
Because our private parts are just as amazing as our hearts, lungs, brains, or any other of our amazing body parts.
But our hearts pump blood, our lungs breathe, and our brains think.
All our private parts do is pee. That's not entirely true, Scoops. It is true that a person pees or urinates through a hole called the urethra in the penis.
Does everyone have a urethra?
They do. It can be harder to see, but girls have a tiny hole in the front of the vulva where urine comes out from their urethra. Urination is actually very important. It helps us get rid of waste, stuff our body doesn't need.
Hey, how come my penis gets big sometimes and points up in the air?
That's called an erection.
Sometimes I touch my penis because it feels good. Sometimes when I'm in my bath or when Mom puts me to bed, I like to touch my vulva too.
You have a clitoris there, Kayla, that probably feels good to touch the same way Keith's penis feels good when he touches it. But have you ever noticed that older kids and grown-ups don't touch their private parts in public?
They don't?
That's right, Keith.
That's the rep
It's okay to touch yourself and see how different body parts feel, but it's best to only do it in private.
Well, if private parts are so special, why do you cover them up? Because they are private, silly.
That's right, Kayla, because they are private.
Hey, Squeaks, pass it.
Wait! Okay, I'm ready!
This is first graders?
at the Dalton School,
Ugh.
$60,000 a year. So,
Gross.
are we over the target here on this show with all the evidence that we presented for years and continue to present from actual practitioners, parents who've uncovered these PowerPoint presentations, this instruction, these videos? Yeah, I think we are. Michael in Naperville, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, good morning, Dan and Amy. I had a quick comment, and I wanted your reaction. The school in Wisconsin, I'm sure they taught a lot of us not to make assumptions, but weren't they making an assumption that by communicating with the parents, that the parents would not accept the fact that their children are transgender? And then the second comment is how are they supposed to earn the trust if they don't know?
Yeah, right. Thanks for the call, Michael. Right. Well, you're right. They are making those assumptions, and it's not unusual. We heard from audio from a conference in California. In conservative areas, how do you deal with parents? Conservative areas. How do you deal with parents when it comes to these identity issues? And so the default position is obfuscation. And I assume they'd say, well, we want to vet and make sure, earn that knowledge. That phrase, earn that knowledge. We want to make sure the parent is going to share our position before we share the information.
But it's none of their business. I mean, who's governing our kids? We should be.
Well, thus the movie. Tina,
Unless, they're using this instruction time to convince them to change genders. That's possible.
who is?
Teachers.
The,
I mean, all this propaganda that they're convincing kids who are thinking, the kids are vulnerable at that time, and they'll do anything their teachers say. And if a teacher's like, "Well, are you sure, Janie, you don't feel like Jimmy? Are you sure you're not?" That's a possibility.
There's research that was spiked from Brown University about the increase in young girls identifying as boys, and the aspect of that increase that was the result of a social contagion. In other words, peer pressure. But of course, that was spiked because that makes it sound like it's political and societal rather than some sort of awakening to living one's truth, which is how it's presented. Tina and Joliet.
Hi, guys. Hey, forgive me, I'm on the stair stepper. I'm a little out of breath. I went and saw the movie last night with a couple of my girlfriends, and it one of the things I think that most of us didn't realize is that this started so much longer than we are aware. And the teachers unions are behind it completely. They have they did play clips of the cartoons that they're using to indoctrinate the kids and to over-sexualize them. And they're beyond disturbing. They're being shown to really, really small children, kindergarten. And it's the only word I can use to describe what's happening in our schools is evil. It's pure evil. There is a hyper-focus on gender and sexuality coming from these new grad teachers, and they are determined to get this into every piece of curriculum that our kids are being exposed to. It's really, really awful. I encourage everybody to take the time, find where this movie is being streamed, and watch it. They cram a lot into the 2 hours, but it's worth every minute of it. You have to, we have to pull this curtain back, rip this Band-Aid off, and fight this battle, or we are doomed. I think there's a generation of kids that it's going to take a long time for them to ever recover from what they've been exposed to. I don't even know if they'll come back. But if we don't do it now, I don't know what's going to happen.
Thanks for the call,
Yeah.
Tina. The movie, again, is Whose Children Are They?
Whose children? Text message. I'm a teacher. Take your kids out of K-2 through 12 public schools now. Critical social justice ideology is in every school. Your child is being indoctrinated and not learning. Take your child out now.
Clay Wheeling.
Morning, Dan and Amy. We were like 10 years ago. It's like, two guys just want to get married. That was a slippery slope.
Yeah.
As a 28-year-old male, not confused with his gender, I am getting very close to just saying screw it and moving to the middle of Alaska with my fiance and never having to talk to anybody from modern life again. I mean, this is every day. Somehow I wake up and I go, there's no way they can top yesterday. And then here it is right in front of you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Clay. Dave, Wakanda.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. My mother was a Chicago teacher for 35 years, taught reading, and so many kids would come through. They're 14 years old and they're in third grade. They just tap them on the butt, go to fourth grade, go to fifth grade. And if the kids so-called did very well on a test, they would be absolutely ridiculed and belittled by the rest of the class. What do you want to be like, Whitey? And they would shame them for doing well on the test. Now, before you guys were talking about this teacher quitting, I have to say we need people to stand up and stick in there, because we need voices like his, and we need people that have the truthful way to be teaching, and not just this indoctrination system. That's my thoughts.
Thanks for the call, Dave. Yeah, I hear that position, but the question is K through 12, government K through 12 salvageable? And I mean, of course, there are good public schools, but thinking of from a system perspective. I mean, for example, Chicago, is that salvageable? No, it's not. It's not salvageable. No, nor are many urban school districts around the country, and some suburban ones too. They're not salvageable. They're institutionally incapable of changing. You're not going to change them from the inside out because you have a couple of teachers stand up. There has to be a mass abdication. More convinced of that than ever, and this is why the school choice movement is taking off, is because more and more people are convinced of that with each passing day too, and that's a good thing.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.